Countdown is such an important game mode. This is how you get all of the gear and the best exotic farm in the Division 2. It's a super casual game mode. You team up with 7 other players and you're in and out in around 20 minutes. It's a wolf pack mentality. It's literally like 8v1 inside of there. And all the enemies are really tanky in there. So you're gonna need a really good build. And I generally say go with a tank DPS build. That's because you're not spending much time in cover. You're literally running in circles, like you're on a track or something. Anyways, today I bring you a build that's gonna help you demolish enemies in there with great survivability while you're doing it. Let's hop in. Okay, so this is the build that I have for you today, and I'm really enjoying it. And it's a Ninja Heartbreaker build. Yeah, you heard me right. And believe it or not, I've never run this setup before, but we were tinkering around and I ended up really enjoying it. And it makes a ton of sense, this setup, and I'll show you why here. Keep in mind the Ninja Bike backpack isn't a great option for just every build. You really want to think through what the Ninja Bike is bringing to the table. If you don't know why, well, let me show you. So if we look at the Ninja Bike Messenger backpack, this is an exotic. It comes with 3 cores, super helpful, especially with the Heartbreaker build. And I'll show you why here in a second, but that's going to be nice. And then I have crit chance here. And then it comes with the talent called Resourceful. So slots in with any equipped gear set and or brand set, item to fulfill a requirement towards unlocking a gear set bonus. So what we're talking about, for example, is the Heartbreaker. The bonuses it's talking about are the stats. So for example, 2 pieces gives me assault rifle damage, 3 pieces weapon handling. Okay, so I only have 3 pieces of Heartbreaker here, but Heartbreaker thinks I have 4 pieces. That's because of the Ninja Bike backpack. That's what it does. It unlocks that 4th piece bonus, which is Heartstopper. So headshots apply a pulse for 5 seconds, and then weapon hits on pulsed enemies add a stack of 1% bonus armor and 1% weapon damage to pulsed enemies up to a max of 50 stacks. So that's 50% weapon damage and bonus armor. Pretty good. That's all you need right there to survive. You have your damage and you have your bonus armor. That's a tank DPS, and that's what the Heartbreaker gear set is. That's its differentiator and what makes it stand out from other things like Hunter's Fury or Striker. I have weapon damage on this, crit chance and crit hit damage. So I decided to run with 1.1 million total armor. That's 2 blue cores. You can go with 1.3, but I wouldn't really go with much more in countdown game mode. And that's because you're running with 7 other players, 8 total. That's your protection, that's your armor. So I think having a decent time to kill is more important than having just a ton of armor. And the gloves are weapon damage and crit chance. And then the chest piece, I really like the chest piece, and I did try it without the chest piece and it still runs really well too, so you have that option. But anyways, I have weapon damage, crit damage, and more crit damage. The talent on the chest is called max BPM, so this increases your max stacks for Heartstopper from 50 to 100. So we now have 100% weapon damage and 100% bonus armor. So the increase I'm talking about is that 4-piece bonus, the Heartstopper bonus. You know, we were getting 50% damage and 50% bonus armor, so it's doubling it. Now I have 100. Super cool, right? So 100% bonus armor, yeah, that's nice shielding. And we have a hard shield too, so that bonus armor is just there to protect you when your shield goes down. It does happen because the hunters disable your skills. And also when your shield breaks, if it breaks, and any damage coming from behind, and you're refreshing that. So really nice. Now here's the kicker. Here's the sweet stuff. So I'm running 2 pieces of Brazos, which acts like 3 pieces of Brazos because of that Ninja Bike backpack. And I'm after really everything here. That's skill tier and magazine size actually. And then I have armor, an extra 15% weapon damage down there, and crit hit chance. So if you see here, it looks like we're running 5 red cores, but the build hits as if it's running 6, all 6 red cores. That's some damage. Really good damage. Okay, and then here's the knees, all red, weapon damage and crits. So if we go to the weapon here, the Kingbreaker assault rifle is a really nice pairing with Heartstopper. It's almost designed for it. It's a very strong weapon with a great 650 RPM. It's similar to the AK series, but just a little bit faster. And look at that mag, 75 rounds in the mag. Great sustainability there. Assault rifle damage, health damage, damage to targets out of cover, and then 20% amplified damage to pulse enemies. And we're pulsing enemies. The gear set pulses enemies, and I have this attachment that is the link laser pointer that also pulses enemies. So headshots are pulsing enemies, and this laser pointer is pulsing enemies, which is important because it has a little bit of a cooldown, but it didn't seem to be an issue when I was running it in countdown this time, so just be aware of it. Anyways, I got 20% stability here. I really like this on the TKB Kingbreaker especially. It allows me to control and hit more headshots. This thing can stagger those guys and bring them down relatively quickly. And I'm running the 3.4x scope. It's got a really nice optional zoom capability with a really nice reticule. I totally recommend this. I actually think this is the best scope in the game. And then I have the extra 20 rounds. Of course, you're gonna run that. I got a little bit of expertise on my Kingbreaker. Totally recommend investing in your Kingbreaker. It's just a good gun. And then for the backup, definitely run the ACS. I'm running the named one called the Rock and Roll. You don't need to run this one. It's just the stacker. But don't forget to put on the laser pointer here so that you can pulse the targets. You're not gonna get stacks if the target isn't pulsed. So when the fight kicks off, start with this thing up close and personal, build your stacks, and then switch to your Kingbreaker and stick with your Kingbreaker from there. So this has 300 RPM, so you're gonna be building your stacks on hit really quickly. So you only use that for just a moment. Now you're gonna wanna run Technician, and the reason why is Technician gives you access to that linked laser pointer. So that's why I'm running Technician, but it's also giving me another skill tier and additional damage to robotics, which is important because Heartbreaker doesn't stack against robotics, most robotics, not all of them. So it's kind of annoying that it doesn't stack, I gotta be honest with you. So that sort of makes up for it. So this is giving us a skill tier, and the backpack is giving us a skill tier, and the 3-piece Brazos is giving us a skill tier. So that's 3 skill tiers right there. So check out our shield. Our shield is a tier 5 shield. That's a 4 million health shield. Very strong. And so the shield skill is the only skill that gets buffed by armor cores. So we got 2 blue cores there as well. 3 yellows, 2 blues, 5 tiers, strong shield. You're gonna want the Fixer as your other skill because you don't have any armor on kill otherwise. Or you could run the Hive, the Reviver Hive if you want to, but I was plenty happy with the Fixer. You're gonna wanna balance your crits here, so I put 45, 93 crit hit damage. If you're not doing Countdown, you need to be, especially if you're a new or returning player. This game mode really helps you catch up to the more seasoned players in the Division 2, especially when it comes to acquiring all the gear you need to create those really important builds. The builds that keep you competitive in the game. And Countdown happens to be the best way to farm exotics as well. One of the reasons why is because it's got a targeted loot system, so you can set to something generic like assault rifles or backpacks, and that's gonna increase your chances for one of the exotics to drop based on RNG, but you're also gonna get Countdown requisitions when you successfully extract. And these are credits you can spend at the Countdown vendor that allow you to buy more exotic caches. And you can do this all season long. So you're basically gonna get at least 1 exotic every 20 minutes by running Countdown. And you don't need to squad up to run this game mode like you would in a raid. Instead, you just go up to this helicopter and matchmake. And I suggest you do that on challenging to ensure that you extract, because from time to time, somebody accidentally drops or things might get rough at the end. And if you're playing on challenging, you have just a better chance of ensuring you extract. And it's really important that you do because those credits buy you exotics. And also, if you didn't know, the loot is exactly the same in challenging as it is in heroic. Otherwise, don't be intimidated by the Countdown game mode. It's gonna seem intimidating at first, but it's really not. It's really quite easy, actually. But if you knew, I get how it feels intimidating just because you don't know what's going on. But after a few laps of this game mode, you're gonna have it all figured out. Okay, this is important that I talk about damage here for a minute because I don't know if it's super clear and I don't want you to be confused. There are these things called countermeasures in Countdown. And countermeasures, they're random. They can give you faster cooldowns, they can give you more hazard protection, more skill damage, but the ones you're really hoping for are more damage at close range and more damage at long range. And so when you get those together, you get some serious damage coming out of your build. And you have your team buffs too. Remember, people are supplying some random team buffs depending on what they're running for specialization and or build. So if somebody's running True Patriot or Ongoing Directive, or if they're running Demolitionist, they're giving you more damage to targets out of cover. They might be running the Coyote Mask, giving you more crits. So there's all sorts of buffs. So your damage is just gonna be all over the place. But I ran this for hours. We did lots and lots of community runs in a live stream just the other day. That's where we use this build. You might have have seen me using it. No matter what countermeasure we had, I felt really good about this build. I saw some numbers where we were hitting almost, I think maybe even greater, but almost 8 million on crit. That's insane. 8 million on crit. I don't think I've ever seen those kind of numbers in there. I don't go inside countdown as much as I should, to be honest with you. So I'm sure many of you have seen numbers like that before, but you can get some big numbers. I mean, that's an assault rifle crit at almost 8 million. That's nuts. I think when I was hitting those numbers, I was taking down hunters in a single mag. Felt really good. So those are the countermeasures you're aiming for, but just remember your damage numbers are going to be all over the place, but it's a good idea to know what kind of damage your build is doing. So go into testing range just to get a baseline number, and this one's hitting between 1.2 and 1.3 million on crit. That's the reliable number, and there will be buffs from your team, so it's gonna only go up from there. I have an alternate setup for this build too, in case you want to go this way. So you can run this Brazos chest piece with spotter and get 15% amp damage. But by doing this, just keep in mind, you're gonna lose 50 stacks of weapon damage, and spotter's gonna help cover some of that. And you're gonna lose 50 stacks of bonus armor. So it's not necessarily better to run this, it's just an alternate. And it does feel really good. So it's not gonna hit as hard as the Heartbreaker chest does if you decide to go with the Brazos chest. But what it does do is give you more upfront damage, and you don't have to wait as long to get all of your stacks. It's less stacking basically, because you only need 50 stacks instead of 100. Just a little more upfront damage. Both chest pieces were great, but if I had to pick one, the Heartbreaker chest piece for sure. Anyways, if you decide to go with the spotter chest, then put your other Heartbreaker piece here on your knees. But you're gonna wanna make sure you preserve your Picaros. You're gonna wanna run 2 pieces of Brazos so that you get that giant mag. It's all about that giant mag, especially in this game mode. Again, they're really tanky enemies. Those hunters are super strong. So this build isn't only great for countdown, it actually works in the open world and for group content really well also. So when running this in solo heroic or any heroic type content where you have tons of elites, you're gonna like that 75 rounds in the Kingbreaker. You know, especially when it's hitting at 1.3 million in damage. And then remember, you're gonna get your team buffs on top of that. So that's heavy hitting. In the open world, this is gonna sort of be played at medium range. Keep in mind that you don't have armor on kill, so the more aggressive you are, then the more micro damage you're gonna take, and your healer might not be able to keep up with that. See, in countdown, you have 7 other players to spread that damage around to, so you're not taking as much damage. But in this game mode, there's not as many players, or you might be running solo, so you're gonna be the focal point. Anyways, your healer's good, the bonus armor is great, but just pace your aggressiveness with your rate of recovery. The damage is great, so if you are a little bit more experienced, or once you get comfortable with these control points, then yeah, by all means push, because you're doing such a good job killing. Your shield is so strong that they don't take too many whacks at your armor just because they're staggered or they're dead. Now for legendary, it works really well, but as a tip, don't spend much time shooting at things like tanks, because the Heartbreaker gear set doesn't stack against tanks, and that's really annoying. So all that time you're putting in damage in those very strong pieces of equipment, you're just degrading in damage. So let your allies shoot the tanks. You focus on the NPCs and the Chungas. This thing did really well against the Chungas. I did just a quick solo legendary here to demonstrate, and unfortunately, because I was running solo legendary, I had to take on the tanks. Just required way too many bullets, and they already require a lot of bullets as they are. Yeah, that's kind of a bummer about Heartbreaker. I think that it would be better in legendary situations if they changed that detail. They intentionally put that there when they nerfed this gear set. At one point, this gear set was actually putting out more DPS than Striker. Here's a quick discussion on the Ninja Bike backpack. So the backpack slot is really important, because really we only have 3 places we can put talents: the weapon, the chest, and the backpack. If we look at the backpack and our options, I mean, we could put the memento there. Not only would we get the 3 cores, but we'd also get more damage, bonus armor, regen, and skill efficiency. I mean, that's all really valuable stuff, right? But the ninja is giving us a buff that's non-competitive in team situations, if that's your issue. And also, if you're playing more from cover and you're not able to grab those trophies, if that's your issue, then the Ninja Bike is a great alternative to the memento. And so the discussion I'm having here with you is, does the Ninja Bike Messenger Backpack make sense for that slot? Is it the best in slot? Well, it just depends on what you're looking for. And in this case, for me, I normally run the Heartbreaker backpack. So my analysis is focused on the Ninja Bike versus the Heartbreaker backpack. And the Heartbreaker backpack, I gotta say, is absolutely amazing. It's probably the best way to get bonus armor in this game, but it requires you to run 4 pieces of Heartbreaker. So that's its condition. This is going to double your bonus armor. So remember, the chest piece is doubling our bonus armor. So we got 100 stacks of bonus armor. And then if you run the Heartbreaker backpack, it's gonna double it again. So you now have 200% bonus armor. Crazy bonus armor. But in Countdown, I found I didn't need all that bonus armor. So instead, I took more damage in the form of sustained damage through that larger mag because they're so tanky. The enemies are so tanky, they require more bullets, so that's less reloads. And 2.1 seconds of reloading is not exactly fast. So the question is, do I want bonus armor or do I want a larger mag and more sustained damage against very tanky enemies? And the answer to that just depends on how much damage you're taking and how frequently. Now, when it comes to putting out damage, well, that's always. I'm always putting out damage. So I know that a larger mag is always going to be in play for me, but bonus armor might not. And that's also because I'm running around with the shield. Now, if you do increase your stacks of bonus armor, you could go shieldless more, but in Countdown, none of that is really an issue. So that's the comparison, and that's why the Ninja Bike backpack made sense for this build and carries over to heroic open world content. It's the same question if you go to heroic, do I want that larger mag against very tanky heroic enemies because, you know, you're facing all elites, or do I want more bonus armor? And it comes down to what am I more frequently using in this case. And of course, you can also put a damage talent on your backpack. You can run vigilance, and the bonus armor from the gear set Heartbreaker would actually shield your vigilance for a little bit, and you also have a regular shield too. But did I feel like I needed more damage? Well, you know, with the crits, the Kingbreaker, the amplified damage, the gear set stacks, the 6 red cores, basically, I didn't really feel like a damage talent was the thing that I needed on this build. Thank you for hanging out with me today. My name is Tuxedo Bandido, and this was another episode of The Division 2. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, like, and turn on notifications to ensure you don't miss out on the fantastic experiences waiting for you in The Division 2. And if you like builds like this, check out the recommended build video I have here for you. If you have anything you want to see covered, be sure to let me know in the comments below. And thank you to all the channel members and donors who make everything possible. Tux Nation wouldn't be without you.
When you buy a game from Ubisoft, enter the creator code Tuxedo Bandido to support the channel. Easy peasy.
Follow me.
I get it.